Hello everyone, so today's video is going to be slightly different to what you're used to seeing here on my YouTube channel. I no longer have time to sit down and do my makeup for an hour or two and then sit down and edit the video. After having a baby and being at university studying law, I tried to find something that I could do in my spare time that didn't take up as much time. Now I know what you're thinking when I'm about to tell you what I picked, but I'm a fast reader. We sat in front of my bookshelves because that is my new hobby, and I love seeing book recs on YouTube and on TikTok and all those things, so I figured, like, why not start that on my YouTube channel? So without further ado, let's get into my January and February reading wrap up, because I haven't done that on TikTok either, so we're going to do that today. We're going to put the two together. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get right on into the video. Okay, so to start, one, I have my tea. So I hope you guys have gotten something else or something as well. To start, this is something that I see Belle on Belle's Library Books on YouTube. I see her do, and I love the idea. So I've done something similar to her. She likes to throw some statistics at you for her reading for the month. So that's what I've done too. This is my January reading wrap up. Now we're first going to go into genres. In my genres, I read mostly romantasy this month. Well, in January, I read 3 books in romantasy, 2 books in adult romance, 1 book in sports romance, and 1 book in dystopian romantasy. Now, I'll get into what that kind of genre is, because I didn't even know that was a thing, but it makes sense with the one that I did read in that genre. So averages, I read 7 books for the month of January, and that turned out to be 3,438 pages. My average star rating was 4.64 stars, and my average format was paperback or like physical books. Then we go into my ratings. So I had the most stars were 5-star books. That's because 2 of them were rereads as well, and they were 5 stars, and they're still 5 stars to me. But I had 4 5-star books, 1 4.25 stars, 1 4-star, and 1 3-star rated book. And then we go into tropes. Now this is something that I decided to do. I haven't seen Belle do this one in particular, but I thought it would be really cool to just touch on some of the tropes that I read over the books. As you can see, there's a huge pie chart there, a huge pie chart. But my top 5 tropes for the month of January was slow burn, which 9.5% of the books were had slow burn in them. He Falls First, which 6.3% of those books had them. Forbidden romance, again 6.3% of the books had them. Dark Secrets, again 6.3% of the books had that, and underdog protagonist, which again had 6.3% of those books had that trope. So now I'm going to get all of the books that I read for the month of January off my shelf and tell you my thoughts and my ratings and my opinions on those books. So now I have my iPad because I keep a reading journal. That's what it looks like. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that. I don't have a cord to be able to see my monitor. So the first book I read for the month of January was Mile High by Liz Tomford. This is a sports romance. Specifically, it's a hockey sports romance. This follows Xander's and Stevie. Xander's is like the bad boy of the hockey team, and Stevie is a flight attendant, and she ends up being the flight attendant for Xander's hockey team. They meet for the first time on the plane. He's instantly obsessed with her. She could not give a shit who he was, like he just does not care. We have, the tropes we have in this is He Falls First, forbidden romance, opposites attract, forced proximity, or close proximity. I guess you could say it's forced proximity because they're like forced on the airplane in a small proximity to each other. And we also have plus size representation. And I know I'm not a big girl, but I'm not like stick figure, so it's really nice to see body image issues being portrayed in a book. I really did enjoy that in this. So my thoughts on this, I think the character development between both the characters is really good. I think that their journey, I think Stevie's journey to learning herself is really beautiful. I think Xander's family development is really beautiful in this book, and I just think all around it's a really, really good book. This book I rated a 4.25 star. I'm very excited to read the rest of this series. The only reason why I haven't read the second book in the series because they are interconnected standalones. I haven't read that because it is in the like picks for my book club. So I've intentionally not read Right Move yet, but I'm very excited to, but I haven't read it because if we pick it for book club, then I want to read it for book club. You know what I mean? The next book I read in January was Praise by Sarah Kate. I freaking loved this book. It is very much a taboo romance. Be careful with that. But I absolutely love this as someone who is very interested in BDSM. Let's just say that. This had like BDSM qualities about it. It spoke a fair amount about BDSM and like different type of BDSM relationships and dynamics and all those types of things. So that was something that I really loved about this book. The tropes in this, like I said, it's a bit of a taboo romance. You have an age gap, and you also have a forbidden romance because it's boss and employee, and it's also ex-boyfriend's dad, which it's the first time I've read something like that, and I found it really interesting. I really loved this book. This follows Emerson, Grant, and what's her name? I forget what her name. Charlie Underwood, that's her name. I was gonna go call her Sarah Kate, but that's the author, not the female character. Basically what happens is she breaks up with her boyfriend. She needs part of her house deposit back because they had leased a place together and they were moving out. She wants her deposit back, her half of the deposit back, and because her ex-boyfriend's dad went guarantor, he's the one that got the check. So when she confronted her ex-boyfriend about it, he was like, you'll have to go talk to my dad. And she's like, why can't you just go and talk to my dad, like talk to your dad for me? He's like, no, you'll have to do it. Here's his address. She rocks up there. There's a misunderstanding. He assumes that she is there for what most other young females are there for. She ends up doing it. She then tells him why she's actually there. And then he ends up offering her a job, and the story goes from there. So it's really good. He also owns a like a sex club, I suppose you'd call it. That's why it's called Salacious Players Club. That's what the whole series is about. Again, I'm very excited to read the next one in this series. I think it'll be really interesting. Oh, also, I rated this one a 4-star, and I really did enjoy it. I think the writing was really good in it. The only thing that I disliked about this was there was a third act breakup, and I'm getting so over reading that in any type of romance book. I'm tired of the third act breakups. I do somewhat understand why it was in this, but it's something that I really dislike. So I just wanted to mention that because I know that a lot of people do get over the third act breakups. The next book I read was a reread in preparation for Onyx Storm. So I read Fourth Wing. Now, the reason why I read this copy of Fourth Wing and not the normal paperback was because this copy that came up had the bonus chapters from Xaden's POV in the back. So I really, really, really wanted to read that. So that was why I read this one specifically. You can see I annotated this. I annotated this purely to try and pick out information that was relevant to Iron Flame that would also be relevant to Onyx Storm. So that was why I wanted to do a reread and to also familiarize myself with the world, because it had been almost a year, just under a year, between me reading Iron Flame and Onyx Storm. So I just wanted to sort of refamiliarize myself. I'm sure I don't need to explain what this book is about, but I'll give you a quick rundown. The FMC in this is Violet. Her mum is the general of a war college. They have been fighting this huge war for 400 years. And her mother forces her to go into the Writer's Quadrant, where she is faced with lots of trials, lots of challenges. She is also like very weak, very frail, very fragile. Her joints generally tend to dislocate quite often, the poor girl. She ends up being forced into the Writer's Quadrant and has to try and make it through. And yeah, you have dragons, you have bonded dragons too, might I add, which I absolutely love. And yeah, then you also have Xaden, which if you don't know who Xaden is, you need to just read this book and then you'll understand. But you also have like lots of magical abilities and all that sort of stuff. So I highly recommend this book. It's a 5-star read for me. It was I think this was even better on the reread. I was explaining that to one of my friends who also loves this book and loves this series. And I was saying to him, I think this book is better on the reread. It just emotionally hit harder for me. So yeah, I rated this book 5 stars. It's always going to be a 5 stars for me. And so, like I said, then I would have continued on and I read Iron Flame. And again, I annotated this, and I annotated just the little bits that I thought might be important for Onyx Storm. You can see this big chunker of a book. It's like 800 pages, this particular copy, because obviously it's smaller than the these size ones. Yeah, so then I read Iron Flame. Again, this book just slapped harder than the first time I read it. So like I said, this was a reread. I don't want to tell you too much about it because obviously it's the second book in the series, so I don't want to tell you what happens in this book. But this was still a 5-star read for me. Again, to be honest, both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame are like infinity star reads for me. I absolutely love them. They were, I think, the second and third book I read in fantasy as I got older. And I still just love it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's so great. Again, 5-star read. Highly recommend. I recommend the entire series, to be honest, but yeah, highly recommend reading Fourth Wing. And if you've read Fourth Wing and you didn't like it, continue on and read Iron Flame, because I think you get a better understanding of the world in Iron Flame and a lot more truths come out, and I feel like this is bigger on the world building, and I think it's really important that you do read this for Onyx Storm. And yeah, I just think this teaches you a lot more about the world. So the next book I read was a book called Eldmore Origins of Blaze. Now I don't have the physical copy because I did read this on my Kindle. It was something that I saw popping up on my TikTok quite often, but it took me like 3-4 months to read this book. It was so slow, and I don't think that the writing in it was really good. It almost felt like the book was rushed. The grammar and the punctuation wasn't really good. It was almost like, I don't want to say plot holes, but it was almost like the storyline didn't follow the structure that it was headed, which made it quite difficult to read. But it wasn't a bad book. I think it was maybe a missed opportunity. I think the storyline in it was good. I think the plot behind it was really good. I think the romantic tension between the MMC and the FMC was really good. Yeah, a little bit about what that book's about. We have dragons and humans. They once lived in peace on the surface, and then one day a war broke out between dragons and humans. The dragons attacked the humans, and the human civilization went underground into a city called Eldmore, which has 3 tiers in it. You have the bottom tier, the middle tier, and then the top tier is like the super upper class for the leaders of Eldmore and those types of things. The middle class is where contestants that compete in the Ascension games, they stay and they live if they were to win the games, and participating in these games, if you win you get money. You can bring your family members from the lower floor up to the middle floor, and then the lower floor in Eldmore is like your workers. It's very like, there's murder that happens, there's a lot of theft, they don't get a lot of food, they are, quite dirty living, but they're the hard workers and those types of things. The book took me like 3-4 months to get through. It was I felt like I was pulling teeth through part of it. The tropes in this book, you have like trainer, like the coach and the trainee, you have trials, dark secrets, you have it's a slow burn, it's a forbidden romance, we have family secrets that come out, trials, coach, trainee. Yeah, I said all those. I rated it a 3-star. At first when I was reading it, I was like, it's maybe a 2-star, but as I got to the end of the book and like the back third of the book, it started to get a lot more interesting, and I do like the way it was ended on such a cliffhanger that it intrigued me to read the second book, that I actually started reading the second book like straight away. I will get more into that because I actually did end up reading that in February, but I'll get more into my thoughts on that book in a minute. That was Eldmore Origins of Blaze. It's called the Ascension series. Yeah, I do recommend reading it. I think it would be good for people that are just getting into fantasy. I don't think it's super complicated. I think it's quite easy for you to understand, and yeah, so if you're just getting into reading and you want to branch into fantasy, I think this series would be a good series for you. Another one I read on my Kindle was The Other Brother by Tyranny Page. I don't know if anyone has seen her on TikTok, but she's an Australian author now, I suppose, but she does a lot of book reviews on TikTok, and her book reviews are hilarious. The way she, like, what she says and how she says it, and her one-liners just have me cackling so much, and I just love her. And I was so excited to read this book by her. It's her debut novel, because I was just like, it's just going to be so funny. I just knew it was going to be hilarious. I knew it was going to make me cackle. I knew she was going to have so much banter in it. I knew she was going to have good tension and all those things. The tropes in The Other Brother, it's a forbidden romance because it is her ex-fiance's brother. We have a musician, MMC. We have found family, and it is very much a slow burn book, but it is so worth it because once you get to the spice, chef's kiss. Oh, I haven't even done spicy ratings on all of them either. I'll do a rapid fire of that at the end. So what this book is about is it follows April and James. April is engaged to a man named Lucas, I believe his name is. I believe his name's Lucas, and James is Lucas's brother. She finds out that Lucas is living a double life on Instagram, and she ends up calling off their engagement, and she goes through this healing journey of trying to love herself and all of those things that comes with finding out that you've been cheated on. It turns out that James is there to sort of help support her and build her up, and it goes from there. So it's pretty good. I really did love it. It was a 5-star read for me. It was sitting at about 4-star most of the way through, and then we got to like the last, I want to say maybe, yeah, like the last third, and I was like, nah, like the way she's wrapped this up, the like grown-up communication, again, it was no third act breakup. It was really good, really loved it. And the way they all communicated like adults, it was really, really good to see. I think she also did a really good job at portraying the healing journey that someone goes through after being cheated on and how you feel about yourself. So yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend the book. And then the last book I read in the month of January was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This was such an anticipated read. You can see how much I annotated this book. I don't think I've ever annotated a book this much. I had a lot of different colored tabs, as you can see, just for like different characters. I had it for different things. So I had like characters, plot, smart, like those little things on one side. And then I had like specific clues for specific things. And then I had a different set of colors for like specific clues into like what the next book's gonna have. Freaking love this book. It's my favorite book in the series so far. Like I said, I'm not gonna be able to tell you too much about what's in it because I don't want to spoil it, because it is the third book in the series. But it was just so unbelievably amazing. I bawled my eyes out from probably about this far in, so like half of the book I was crying. This book also has so much suspense. There's so much happening from start to finish. It doesn't stop. And the cliffhanger of this book is the worst out of Iron Flame and Fourth Wing and Onyx Storm. This cliffhanger, and I have to wait years for a new book. I'm so upset by it, but anyway, love this book. It was a 5-star, again, an infinity star read. The whole series is for me. I think Rebecca Yarros really knows what she's doing. She's definitely a plotter. She knows how to plot books. She's even said that herself. I love this book. I also do have the Australian, New Zealand special edition of this. I really want to get my hands on the US one just because this book is so freaking good. Oh my god, I can't. But yeah, I just love this book. I think she did so well at this. The spice in this is really good too. Infinity star read for me. Highly recommend reading this series, especially if you didn't like the first one. Push through to get to this one because I think it is so worth it. Okay, now to quickly rapid fire through the spice ratings I would give Mile High probably like a 2. I'd probably say like a 2 chili spice rating. There wasn't a lot in it, and the spice that is in it isn't super crazy, if that makes sense. Like, I think this is a fairly, still like quite a romantic book. Praise, I would give Praise like, it's a very small book, but I'd probably give it like, I want to say maybe 3.5 chili spices. I think that the spice in this, obviously because of what it is, it's very appropriate. It's a little bit more taboo. It's a little bit more intense because again, we have the BDSM subplot, I suppose. So yeah, this I would give 3.5 chili spices. Fourth Wing, I would give Fourth Wing like, I want to say maybe, no, I'm going to say 2.5 chili spices, because it takes a while for the spice to start in this book. And obviously it's not the main plot, the fantasy side of it and the, you know, the War College is the main part of this book. But I do think that the spice that is in this book is really good. I think she does a good job at it. And something that I said to my book bestie is I really love the way that Rebecca writes the spicy scenes in this, because she doesn't explicitly explain what the MMC's appendage looks like. She doesn't make it out like the FMC is just staring at that area, and the way she describes it is more like, oh, that first stretch, or he feels me, or whatever it is. It's just way better, and that's something that I really love. So I'd give this one a 2.5 chili spices. Now, Iron Flame, I would give 3 chili spices. There's a little bit more, the tension's higher, and when it does hit, it hits harder. So I would give this one a 3 chili spice. It gets a little bit more, I don't know how to explain it, but it gets a little bit more like freaky, I suppose, in this book. So yeah, this one I would give 3 chili spices. For Eldmore, I would only give that like a 1 chili spice. There's no like real smut in it, but there is some like really heavy tension. There's some very heavy like romance and those types of things, but there's no smut. It's a very, very, very slow burn book. The Other Brother by Tyranny Page. Now I would give that one like a solid 3.5 chili spices, because the spice that's in it is so good, and the way she writes it, like, again, it's a little bit more, it's probably a little bit more provocative than what I was saying, like how Rebecca Yarros writes her smut, but it's still really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I think it hit at the appropriate times, and I think what he does to her is still a little bit more like freaky as well. And then we have Onyx Storm. I'm gonna give Onyx Storm like 3.5 chili spices. The spice in this is way more freaky. So much more happens. The spice isn't very consistent in this just because of what is happening in the storyline, but when it hits, this hits hard. The spice in this hits so hard, and it's just amazing, and I absolutely love it. Okay, now we're gonna get into my February reading wrap up. My genres for February. I read 1 small town romance, 1 dark romance, 1 sports romance, 2 dystopian romantasy romances, and 1 thriller. Now we're going into averages. I read a total of 6 books for the month of February, and I read 1,905 pages. My average rating was 3.87 stars, and my average format was actually all of them. So I had listened to audiobooks as well as read physical books and ebooks as well. It was literally one of each, because I have started listening to audiobooks while I'm cleaning or something. If I can get the book that I'm currently reading on Audible, I will listen to it while cleaning or doing some stuff around the house as well. So it turned out that I had done all of them. My ratings for this month, we had 2 3.5 stars, 1 3.75 stars, and 3 4-star books. And then the tropes, my top 5 tropes for the month of February was slow burn. 10.3% had slow burn. Then we had He Falls First, which we had 7.7% of the books had that. 7.7% of the books had Dark Secret or Dark Secrets. Again, 7.7% had Forbidden Romance trope, and 5.1% had Coach and Trainee. There was a lot more that had 5.1%, but I wasn't going to sit there and write them all down. We've got like Coach and Trainee, Chosen One, Reluctant Hero, Second Chance, Age Gap, and there's a couple more in there that I can't see. Now I only have 3 physical books here, so because I did read 3 of them on my Kindle. First one I read was Wild Love. This is my book club's February pick of the month, so this is the book that we all collectively read. But Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is a small town romance. The tropes in this, you have brother's best friend, boss employee, a little bit of a love triangle, single dad, forbidden romance. Again, you can see I tabbed it quite a lot. The tabs at the top are like things that are like topic discussion points for book club. Now, this is the first time I have read a small town romance. Small town romance is not my favorite genre, I can say, after reading this. But this wasn't the worst book. I do think that there was a particular character like a side character in this. Well, I suppose she'd be a main character because she is the daughter of Ford. I think she carries the first half of the book, to be honest. Just her being in there and her presence really drove me to continue reading it because I found her really funny. Sometimes I found Rosie a little bit annoying, I suppose you could say. And Ford was very just like, I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I do love the ending of this book. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Can I tell you everything that happened in it? No. I can tell you the ending of the book, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to spoil it for you. But I rated this book a 3.5 star. I'd probably give this, there's one spicy scene in this that just lives in my head constantly, and purely because of that, I'm going to give it like a solid 2.5 star rating, 2.5 chili spice rating, purely because of one scene that happens on a desk, and they're joking about him not being able to find a specific spot. So it's really good. I do recommend, if you love small town romances, I think you would really enjoy this book. If you love slow burn, you'll also really enjoy this book. I'm actually not the biggest fan of slow burn, which is really funny because a lot of the books that I've read this year so far are quite slow burn, but I would recommend this still, even though it's a 3.5 star. It's something that I would recommend to people if they enjoy reading this book, reading this type of book. The next book I read actually as a beta reader for an author, a friend of mine who is an author that I actually met through my book club. She wrote a little novelette, I think you call it. It's just a very short romance book called Her Muse. So it's Her Muse by Ivy Grape. I'll put it on the screen. Any of my books that I read on my Kindle, by the way, I will pop on the screen. But I beta read that for her and I really enjoyed the book. It's the first time that I've read a FF romance. I think she nailed it. The spice in it was great. It's a dark romance, I should preface that as well. She does write her spicy scenes are quite heavy. I do know that she is also, I have 2 more of her books up here. I actually have more of her books somewhere else too, but I have multiple of her books sitting here. She kind of gifted them to me. She actually gifted me her proof copy of Bones Deep, which I do believe this was her debut novel, I think. But yeah, she gifted me her proof copy of Bones Deep and Knuckles Deep. She also gave me 2 very pretty trophy copies as well that are not proof ones, they're like published ones. She is an indie author, but I genuinely think that this book was really good. It was really awesome to read an FF romance because it is something different, something I haven't read before. So it follows Raven and Keys. Raven is a model and she has always wanted to work with a particular photographer named Keys, and Keys is coming to her town and she ends up applying for the position to do a shoot for her, and she wins it, and the story kind of goes from there. Keys has a reputation that, you know, she generally tends to get physically involved with her models, and yeah, the story goes from there. I genuinely think this book is amazing. It was also awesome to do beta reading and give some advice or opinions of what I thought of the book, and you know, there was also like a really awesome plot twist partway through this, at the end of this book as well, that it was just really cool to see and really cool to be able to give her advice on that and be like, oh, I would change this because it kind of clued me in. Her Muse by Ivy Grape, I highly recommend. I would give, the rating I gave it is a 4 out of 5 star rating, and the chili spices I would give it would probably be like a 4 star because the spice starts early and it's very, very hot and heavy in the spice department, so it would get a 4 chili spice. So the next book I read was Her Greatest Mistake by Hannah Cowan. This follows, why do I forget both of their names? I forget both of their names. Why don't I remember her name? It's kind of like a Braxton, that's it. So this follows Maddox and Braxton. It's a hockey romance again. They were childhood best friends. Something happens and they end up not speaking to each other because of something that happened between her father and Maddox. Maddox. He is the face of NHL, and there's a bad decision that he makes to go and rescue his brother from a situation, and they end up in a fake dating relationship because her father again is spreading some lies, and his PR team thinks that if we can make it look like you two are dating, they're not going to believe what he's saying because his daughter is dating you. So we have found family in this as well. We have He Falls First, Second Chance, again plus size representation, which I absolutely love, and she's very confident in her body, which I love to see. And yet again, this is, I wasn't sure that hockey romance was my thing after reading Mile High by Liz Tomford, but I actually really enjoyed this. So I'm actually kind of going into the sports romances, which is really crazy for me because I'm definitely more of a dark romance and romantic girly. That's like my two favorite genres. The next book I went on to read was the second book in the Ascension series, the Eldmore series. So I read Eldmore, Hollow of Shadows. Again, this randomly came up on my TikTok, but because I'd finished the first book, I really wanted to read the second book. This did take me quite a few weeks to read. I kept like putting it down, would read something else, would go back, put it down, read something else. And I think I actually started reading this book at the end of last year. No, I didn't. I started reading it in January, didn't finish it until February. Again, I can't tell you too much of what happens in the book just because that's just how, like, I can't tell you what happens in this book because it's the second book in a series, but I really do love it. The tropes in this book, we have lovers to enemies, trials again, a forbidden romance, chosen one, again we have the coach and the trainee. We also have like an element of, it's like class differences. Like I said, this one, the Eldmore series, is the series where I was like, it's dystopian romance because it is very much a dystopian world, but it's a dystopian romantasy. It's fantasy because you have magic and dragons and all those things, but you've got the dystopian world as in like, you know, they've moved underground and they're living in this particular world, and there's a lot of lies that are happening from the elders and all those sorts of things. So that's why this falls into a dystopian and romantasy category, and it's kind of, I've put it into one category on its own. Again, I do feel like this book was quite rushed, but I do think that the storyline was better than the first. But again, I do think it was a bit of a missed opportunity. Had the time and effort been put into it more, I think it could have been even better. Again, this is still quite a bit of a slow burn, but I did rate this book 3.5 stars, and I would probably give it like a 1.5 chili rating, just because the romance of the spice does amp up just a little bit more in this book. I then went on to read the third and final book in the Eldmore series, which was Eldmore Maze of Twilight. This was the best book in the series by far. I ended up rating this book a 4-star. I do still believe that it felt almost rushed and a little bit disconnected, but I think that the storyline was much better. I hated the ending, but also loved the ending. But I think that the storyline and the resolution and how everything was put together was done really, really well. The tropes in this one, we have enemies to lovers, we have a reluctant hero, and to be honest, it's kind of that the whole way through. Also, we have an age gap through the entire series as well as the class difference. But the biggest one that kind of shifts here is enemies to lovers. We definitely have like a really big chosen one element in this particular book. And yeah, so like I said, it's a 4-star rating to me. I would give the spice rating, it would get like 2.5 chili spices. Definitely amps up in this book. There's a lot more that happens. We actually get our first like real smutty scene in this book as well. So yeah, it would get a 2.5 chili spice for me. But the last book I read in the month of February was Red River Road by Anna Downs. This is a thriller. It's based in Western Australia, which I absolutely love. It was really awesome to read a book by an Australian author that's based here. We have a solo female traveler, unreliable witness, missing persons, and also some mental illness is depicted in this as well, which I really, really did love to see. We also have some DV that is depicted in this as well, so keep that in mind if you do pick this up to read. But this was really, really good. I have only read one thriller apart from this one. I've read, I think it was The Inmate by Frida McFadden. That's the only other thriller that I've ever read, and I really, really, really rate this one. This one's really good. This one would get a 4-star rating. It's got no spice level because there's no romantic plot line to this or subplot. It's truly just a thriller. this follows Katie. You actually have a 3-person POV in this. You have Katie, Beth, and what's his name? Wyatt, I believe. Yes, Wyatt. So you have Katie is the main female character, you have Beth as well, and then you have Wyatt. Katie is on a mission to find her missing sister Phoebe, and she is on the road and she ends up picking up a stray female traveller, and her name is Beth. And Beth was dating a man named Lucas that she was running away from, and Lucas's brother is Wyatt. So that's how and why we have those POVs. A much bigger story ends up coming out from all of this. It's a really good book. You're questioning quite a lot. You're very curious as to what's going on. Again, with the mental illness representation that does happen in this, you're so trying to figure out what, like, some of it just does not make sense, but it is really, really good. I highly recommend. If you like thrillers, you'll probably really enjoy this. This has really gotten me into thrillers more. I would love to read more thrillers. I do have another one of her books to read, which is called The Safe Place. Yeah, I highly recommend this book. Like I said, it gets a 4-star rating for me. I think this was better than The Inmate by Frida McFadden. Highly recommend. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This one will be probably the longest one of these videos that will ever be up on my channel because I had to go through 2 months worth. We will stick to it a little bit better moving forward. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you got to sip your tea or your coffee or a margarita. I don't mind. But stay tuned for my February TBR. That will be coming soon. And yeah, I'm very excited for the stuff to come on this channel. I'm excited to read more. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one for my March TBR. Not that I ever stick to a TBR, by the way. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you for my March TBR, and I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, night, day, wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!